At the end of the day, you got to realize that as a man, nobody is going to feel sorry for you or care about you because, if you're a halfway competent man in this world, everybody's going to look to you as you should be capable of, doing something. You should be capable of being able to, help somebody on the street if they need help. You should be able to, help whatever problem that your woman asks you for. You should be the back. You're basically the backbone of society. You're expected to be able to do all of these things. Just be like a workhorse and a mule. Nobody really takes the time to think about how guys feel. It sucks. It sucks, but it's the reality of this game we call life. And I hate to say it this way, but the sooner you realize this, the the better off you will probably be, because unless you actually find yourself a girl that genuinely cares about your feelings and your struggles and the things that you've been through, nobody else is going to care. Your job doesn't care. Your friends, maybe they care if they're really close to you. um, Girls don't care unless like that's your girlfriend or your wife. you know Random people, other people, they don't care. You just have to accept that fact. And that's another reason why most guys crash out, because most guys keep things in so deep and so internally, to the point where sometimes they can't take it anymore. Sometimes something so minor can happen that would make the guy crash out, and he ends up on the news because he was holding so much in. And it's really unfortunate to see, because I really think, and I genuinely believe, that most of these guys, if they had somebody to talk to, the amount of violent crimes caused by men, not just in the US, but in the world, would go down. You know, and it's different. It's different looking at things from a United States standpoint and then other country standpoint. Typically, first world countries are the ones with these problems. And then you look at countries that are more closer to their normal gender roles, like third world countries and things like that. Some of the men are somewhat respected, but, globally, most guys are not heard. Most guys' problems are not being answered. And it makes a guy want to crash out. And at the end of the day, you really got to take a look, and you got to take a look at the world, and you have to move accordingly. Can you really continue to live your life just expecting people to, listen to you, expecting, your feelings to be coddled? No. You have to just grow up. And that's the harsh reality that the young boys are not taught in schools. Nobody listens to you. Yeah, you're always supposed to be the protector, the provider. Never do anything to lash out and release your emotions in a healthy way. And that's what causes all of these things, like school shootings, or vandalisms, and guys just, not wanting to fight. They just go straight to wanting to, grab the tool and wanting to go crazy. And it's just like, if there were more if there were more things, more entities, more departments that cared about how guys felt, I bet I bet that guy, if there was a safe space, I can say, if there was a safe space for guys to go to, most more guys would probably not. I know for a fact there would be not as many violent crimes caused by men. But unfortunately, that's not how society works. And you, as a man, you have to realize this. The earlier you realize this, the better and probably easier life will become for you, because you just have to realize and accept the fact that, hey, okay, these are the cards. I'm a man in this world. These are the cards that I've been dealt, the cards that were stacked against me. Probably nobody's going to listen. I just have to get it. I just have to somehow make this life work for me, and I have to put myself in the best position possible to protect myself, because, at the end of the day, you're never safe. You're never safe. It doesn't matter whether you're a man, woman, whatever. You're never safe. You always have to make sure that you're constantly leveling up and getting to that point. Now, if you find a good ground, a good middle ground, a good stopping point, then hey, good on you. But most guys never find that because you know people live paycheck to paycheck, and as things become more expensive in this world, especially the United States, you really have to realize and you have to ask yourself, like, what kind of life am I going to be? What kind of life am I going to be able to look back on and think of when I'm 70, 80 years old? Am I going to have set my family up for success? Am I going to have been able to, would I have been able to take care of my family? These are the questions that are going to haunt you at the end of your days. And I don't think most guys are prepared for that question. You know, they're not prepared for the aftermath of their actions. You know, myself included. I'm not gonna sit here and say I've been the most innocent person or the most prepared person, but that doesn't stop me from doing that every day. You know, you as a man, you just have to realize, hey, I have to get to where I need to get to for this, not just for the sake of myself, but firstly for the sake of, if you're religious, I'm religious, for the sake of God, for the sake of your family, for the sake of your loved ones. You're the one that they're going to rely on if there is an issue, and you have to be prepared for that. You have to be able to ask yourselves those difficult questions in the mirror and really try to understand, like, if something if something were to happen to me, am I going to live my life wishing that I had done this? Is my family going to be prepared if something were to happen to me? And I think the answer to that is no for most guys. I don't think a lot of men think about the fact of, is my family prepared for something to happen to me? Will they be able to continue to press on in life if something were to happen to me? Honestly, the answer is no. I'm not sitting here saying, like, be suicidal, go and do something to yourself. No, not at all. What I'm saying is, ask yourself seriously, really ask yourself that question while you're living this comfortable life, while you're living this life of just, going through the motions, not really having a plan or anything like that. Ask yourself this question: if something were to happen to me today, tomorrow, whenever, is my family going to be okay? If I were to go to jail, is my family going to be okay? I think the answer to that question for most guys is no. And I think that that's really something that should be at the forefront of most guys' minds. I think that a lot of men need to hold that question near and dear, a lot closer to them. Ask yourselves these important questions and really, really think about the things that are important in life, not these material possessions that tie you to the world, but really think about the things that are important in life.